there, everybody. I'm going to flip it around to talk to you first for a second. Hi there, this is Heather with the Friends of Paige Walker, and we are about to do an exploration live tour walkthrough of a place that you've certainly seen, but probably not seen all of it. The Ashworth family has been very, very kind, very generous today to allow me to show you guys some of the parts of Ashworth that you don't normally get to see if you're part of the public, including the Masonic staircase, which Ralph Ashworth called the secret staircase, belonging to the Masons when they had this building. And we're also going to go see the upstairs, which has the original hardwood floors. It has the scuff marks from the footfalls of the Masons who met there before. And we're just going to kind of go all through it and talk about the history of what stood here even before Ashworth was here. So stick around, we're going to go look at all of that. We're starting outside. So most of you have probably seen this. And if you haven't, then I'm showing it to you. So this right here lets you know when the building was first constructed, 1931. And originally, Ashworth's was meant to be a Masonic temple. So this building was the temple where the lodge would meet. The Kerry Masons were very, very active. Here we go. Yep, here we go, Kerry Lodge, number 198. They were chartered in 1858. The Kerry Masonic Lodge was very active in the town of Kerry, especially during cleanup times or whenever there was any kind of issues in the town. They would really come together, raise money, and try to make a big impact. And I'm going to show you before we go upstairs. I promise that's coming very soon. I want to talk to you briefly about the history of this street corner, because I actually found out myself through the blog that we posted earlier this month, written by one of our board members, that this was not, this corner has always been a corner where people would hang out. Even back in the 1800s, this would have been called Uncle Bob's Corner. And Uncle Bob referred to Robert Harrison. Oh, hear the church bells going. Robert Harrison, he would eventually, I believe, become the mayor, and he owned this corner and used to work for Ashworth's. Yes, Chad, it's very cool. We're going to look at the upstairs. A lot of people have asked about that. So Uncle Bob refers to Robert Harrison, and I'm certain that that's what Harrison Avenue is named after, Robert Harrison. And there are so many wonderful descriptions of the teenagers who would come. Obviously Kerry High is within walking distance, and we've talked about the history of Academy Street, where students would go to Kerry High, and then they would actually live in residence halls on Academy Street. In fact, Cotton House was one of the residence halls, so there were students that used to sleep there. And so you can imagine they would want to come down here to Uncle Bob's Corner, and that's where they would hang out. And they just absolutely loved Uncle Bob. But unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, just as time marches on, Uncle Bob's Corner was purchased by the Masonic Lodge, and they built this building here. Now, I wanted to show you the photos of this building before it was Ashworth's. It looked pretty different. If you've ever seen a Masonic temple, they're typically just kind of one big rectangle. They don't do a lot of flourish or decor, which is by design. So here is what it would have looked like. See if you guys can see it through the reflection here. You can see this would have been the building, which at the time it looks like was Rexall Drugs. And it doesn't have the overhang that we have today that we really kind of associate with Ashworth's. It also doesn't have the iconic shutters. So you can see how different it would have looked back in those days. This was in 1950s. So Ashworth's would have soon taken over at this point. But this was Rexall Drugs. So those gives you some ideas. Oh, and by the way, I'm sure most of you know at this point, but Daphne Ashworth was instrumental in forming the first library for Kerry. Before she got to work with the Women's Club, the library was just a traveling cart. You would just kind of see the cart coming by, the bookmobile, and the kids would run out from their school or from their dorms, and they would, try to catch the cart and get a book. And then that cart may not come back for another month, another week. So having a library was very important. And that picture I just showed you, that was where the first library was. The second place, that's right, it was Adam's drugstore as well before Ashworth bought it. So this was a drugstore way before Ralph and Daphne got here. And pharmacy over there was also a drugstore. So there was 2 drugstores right across the street from each other. So we're going to walk into Ashworth's here, but we're not going to go in this door, the normal door. We are going to go see the staircase. So ever since I wrote an article a couple of years ago about the secret Masonic staircase, and that's Ralph's term, he called it a secret staircase. When he told me about that, I got so excited. There's a secret staircase, and it's basically this. We're going to go up it. This right here, I'm going to try not to be too loud because I know they're working. This was the stairway that, decades of Masons would have to walk up and down to get to their meeting room, which was upstairs. And what Ralph told me was that, and I'll call him Mr. Ashworth because I want to be very respectful, what Mr. Ashworth told me was that these scuffs that you can see here in the stairs, and they go all the way up, that these are markings of the footfalls of just decades of Masons. And again, a lot of Masons were prominent Kerry figures, Kerry mayors, people who made a big impact, Kerry leaders. So this staircase is more than just a stairway up to the offices. It's really the markings of some of these prominent people who made such an impact. It's the tangible evidence of them. I'll try to speak up then. This is the tangible evidence of these generations of Kerry leaders that would have just walked up and down these stairs. And yes, you guys noticed the old bar stools. That's because they were putting down a new floor downstairs, so they pulled these up. They were very nice. They made me an orange Julius, or a orangeade. And this is the best orangeade I've ever had, and I love orangeade. So, in here we have one of the stock rooms. We will go in there in a minute, but this is really what you guys are here for. So, at the top of the stairs, we have the office door. And I want to note, we've now turned into this hardwood floor. This is the original hardwood floor. They have not ever had to change it. So, we're talking about the original floor that the Masons would have walked on, met in, and that's a large part of what's up here. So, again, we're now in kind of a stock area plus the upstairs offices, so it's not going to look anything like the Ashworths you're used to downstairs. However, because it hasn't been, remodeled like the downstairs would have been, a lot of this is original, and you'll be able to see the history behind it. So, this, now the stock room, but the Ashworth family has intentionally left the floor untouched so that this is the original floor. This would have been the meeting room. So, when I was talking to members of the Ashworth family who brought me up here, they showed me around, and they did tell me that this wall wasn't here. They did put this wall up. So the meeting room, let me see if I can show you the size. The meeting room would have actually gone all the way back. So this wall wouldn't have been there to interfere with the space. It would have just been a full, long space. And now forgive us, we are not Masons. My grandfather was a Mason, but in true Masonic fashion, he obviously didn't tell me much about it. But we believe that and again, I might use the wrong word, the altar or the front, whatever would have been the front area, the stage, the altar, that was up here. So this would have been the front of the room. And they even had the different sized chairs where the different levels of Masons would sit. So this was the lodge. And if you've been following my work, this is actually the second time in about a month that I've explored a Masonic Lodge that is no longer being used for that, or a Masonic Temple. The temple is the building, the lodge is the group of people. So this room was also used for other things too, though. And you can see the hardwood, and it's really cool. I'm going to give you guys a close-up on some of the faded parts, so you can really see the age. Here we go, we'll take a look here. If you've seen my original article that I wrote about the secret staircase, this is the photo you would have seen, where I took a good close-up of the hardwood, so you could really see the nicks and the scrapes. Just, I mean, this place was built in the early 30s, so this has been here for almost 100 years. It's hard to imagine that this building has been here almost 100 years. And before that, it was Uncle Bob's Corner and was still an iconic place where the students would want to come and spend time. And it's interesting to me because they loved Uncle Bob. There are articles. If you click on the blog link, I actually put it in the post here. You can read about the history of what was here even before the Ashworth's building here, the Masonic Lodge was here, back in the 1800s. And then in the early 1900s, like 1903, we still have students coming to this area just loving Uncle Bob. And I think it's a great mirror of today because, I mean, anyone who lives in Kerry and spends any time downtown, they love Ashworth's and they love Mr. Ashworth. He is a personality unto himself. So Ashworth's is quite a piece of history for the people and the family, as well as the building and the time that we've spent here. So, well, I'm wearing a mask, so I'm trying to speak quietly enough not to disturb anybody, but I'll try to speak up. The other thing that they told me about happened in this room is they rented it out so that a group of baton twirlers could practice their baton up here. It would have been like an organization that did baton twirling, and they said when they were up here doing their practice, downstairs it sounded like bowling balls were just dropping all over that hardwood floor, but they knew that it was the baton twirlers. Here we go. They've got Ralph Ashworth, Daphne Ashworth, and got Chris Ashworth, which is their grandson. And this family has done so much for the city as well. You can see a family tradition of giving. Daphne was very, very invested in Hallmark shops, so she and the Ashworth family ran multiple Hallmark shops around the area. And I found out today that there was actually a Daphne's Hallmark shop. You typically hear Lynn's Hallmark shop, but there was a Daphne's Hallmark shop as well. Possibly more than one, but I know there was at least one. Looking at yearbooks, lots of old books. Now this is a view that has not been seen in decades. So I was told by Chris that there was a wall blocking this. And unfortunately, or no, maybe not, there was a wall over the window. And for whatever reason, moisture and humidity was getting through, and they decided they needed a window there to help. There was originally a window here. So when they put the window back, they got access to this view, which, I mean, a view of Kerry that hasn't been seen in a long time. I am definitely going to take a couple of pictures from up here. You could watch the parade from up here when COVID's over. You can see the clock. You can see a lot of the iconic lights. And then down this way you can obviously see the historic churches. So there's really just a lot to be seen from this area. And if you've gone to the virtual reality wall, it's on that building right there. And I'm going to show you where in Ashworth's they're the ones projecting onto that wall. We're going to see that. So I mean, Ashworth's most of you have spent time here, and that's why we're doing the upstairs rather than exploring the downstairs, which everyone has pretty much seen. Looks like everyone's vanished for the live stream, so it looks like we might have the place to ourselves. the Ashworth family themselves has really kept track of their own family history and have so many stories. And you can see some of the offices in here. Oh, and some of the, older photos. Looks like they've got a photo of the Kildare farm. I do have permission to be here, but I still feel nosy poking around. But you can see they've got pictures of the original Kildare farm. These are some offices that I'm not even familiar with. Scott's Store and Office on West Chatham Street, 1900. So you can really even get a feel. Okay, somebody who knows more than me. I know this is Academy Street, but was that seal ever there, that icon there? Or is that just for art sake? Tell me if you know, because I'm not old enough to remember that, but I'm curious if that was there. And a lot of people really love taking pictures of the Ashworth building. It's just become one of the more iconic places in downtown. And you can see even the decor. I asked about the wallpaper, and Chris told me he believes that his grandmother, Daphne, it was there, Bob? Somebody please find me a picture of that. That's interesting. You can see some of the older wallpaper that's still here, probably from the 70s, maybe the 80s. So I find it just fascinating to see the history that's inside the building, and then the fact that really this corner has forever been a location where young people like to come. In fact, I can tell you this, Mr. Ashworth, it was kind of like, hello, ran into someone. It was kind of like fate that he ended up getting Ashworths to begin with. Oh, by the way, his grandson, Chris, owns simplysouthern.com, and they sell a lot of interesting things there too, so that's also their brand. And I didn't realize this, but there's actually an Ashworth's clothing store in, I believe it was Fuquay. There's a gas station. So the Ashworth's name, we in Kerry think of it as Ashworth's drugstore, but it's really on a lot of places. They are, as they've told me, a family of entrepreneurs and have always been entrepreneurs and have that entrepreneurial spirit. Even dating back to their great-grandparents, they, I believe he told me it was his great-grandmother, or his grandmother, I believe it was Daphne's mother, Daphne Ashworth's mother, who even way back in the, early 1900s, would have been trying to run businesses, keeping books for her husband. Daphne did an incredible, or Mrs. Ashworth, did an incredible amount of service to downtown Kerry by founding, or helping, at least being extremely prominent in the finding of the library, which, by the way, the second stop of the library was Serendipity. So the original library location, we believe that building is gone, but when the library moved, it moved to what is now Serendipity's, which also was a doctor's office. So Serendipity's is much more than just a sandwich shop, in the same way that Ashworth's is much more than just a pharmacy. Many of the buildings in Kerry have multiple histories behind them, which is why losing them is so tragic. So this right here, if you came and saw the virtual reality wall, this is the gear that they have set up in here to project it at night. Downtown Kerry has been doing all kinds of interesting pop-up artwork that just appears without warning and then disappears. So Ashworth's is playing a role in that by being a location where they can project stuff from. And I wanted to mention also this corner, even before it was Ashworth's or the Masonic Temple, it was bought by J.M. Templeton, who was the son of Dr. Templeton, a very, very prominent and historic Kerry doctor. So a lot of these famous Kerry names, they're all centered in this one little area of Kerry where there's just so much history. And as I was saying, Daphne's mother, she was very interested in education and in making sure that, let me close the door for them, in making sure that people were able to learn how to read, to get their education, and that is part of why Daphne was so passionate about getting a library started. And they told me that when they were growing up, we're going to head back down the staircase and look at one other place in Ashworth downstairs. That when they were growing up, they didn't like it, but it was good for them. She used to make them read for an hour every day, Mrs. Ashworth, Daphne. So reading was very important to her, and she really is one of the main reasons that Kerry students were able to get so much access to books. And Mr. Ashworth, Ralph Ashworth, he was a pharmacist in, I believe it was Fuquay. Might have been Willow Springs, but I think that's where they grew up, so I think it was Fuquay. And we got the iconic doors here. Oh, I think we're going to go on the other side, actually. So he was a pharmacist there, and his mother-in-law gave him the money to purchase a pharmacy. So he came to this spot in Kerry. This is actually very important. He came to this spot in Kerry, and there was a pharmacy across the street, and there was this one. Well, the pharmacy across the street, it was for sale, but it had just been sold, so he couldn't buy it. And this pharmacy, which was Adams Pharmacy, it was not for sale. However, Mr. Adams had just found out that his son would not be continuing in the career of being a pharmacist. So he decided to go ahead and sell this pharmacy to Mr. Ashworth. And it just happened at just the exact right time, otherwise Ashworths might not have been here at all. And this is just a storage room. You can see some of the iconic things that would go on your hot dogs and the kinds of foods that you would come here and get, your soda fountain, the ice machine. And if you go through there, you'll go all the way back around out to the pharmacy. So I'm going to come out here and then come into the pharmacy and finish up. Oh, excuse me, sir. So there was every possibility that Ashworths just would not have been here at all. But as luck would have it, and as the entrepreneurial spirit of the Ashworth family would have it, this ended up becoming Ashworths. And as we know, for probably 130 years or more, this corner has been a spot where Kerry youths, Kerry students from the school down the road would have come and spent their time. So long before Ashworths, this was a place where people loved to come. And the Ashworth family, once they came here, being right here on the corner was just prime property. And I remember that Kerry was a very sleepy town, but Ashworths happened to come here just as RTP was being built, and the boom that it brought to Kerry really benefited Ashworths. It's part of why it was able to find the success and still be here today. So they really even were part of that boom where Kerry was growing from being what we knew if you grew up in Kerry in like the 40s and 50s to what we see as Kerry today. Very fortunate that he ended up here on this corner, which seems to be a blessed and magical corner. So I hope that Ashworths is here for many, many more years, and that we're talking about the history of Ashworths, even when I'm an 80-year-old and still saying, I remember Ashworths. But I have to wonder what will eventually be here. Will it continue to be Ashworths? And if something comes here next, what will it be? Because this corner seems to be a very magical place in Kerry for more than just the hot dogs. So thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to read the blog. I put a link to it in this post that was written by one of our board members. It's got so much history. It's got photos of what Uncle Bob's Corner looked like before this was Ashworth. So it's really interesting to look at. Take a look at the blog, and we'll be back next month with another theme, more blogs, and more live streams. If you have something you would like to see us explore, some history you are interested in, be sure to leave us a comment. Let us know. We love to kind of look at what you're interested in and factor that into what we decide to cover as our history. So thanks for exploring the hidden history of Ashworth's with me, and we'll see you next time.